Greetings, members of the Indieheads podcast. This is former comrade and compatriot AJ Moser speaking. I know it's been a little bit since I was on an episode of the podcast. I've had a busy couple of days, couple of weeks here. I've moved to Thailand to pursue my dream career of being a Bitcoin farmer, as well as a SoundCloud rapper, as well as a Battle Royale video game developer. I'm currently sleeping in a 400-foot apartment on the 90th floor of an apartment building in Bangkok, where I sleep on a wet air mattress surrounded by 8 desktop computers, 7 of which are running GT 1080s, mining cryptocurrencies at high speeds to try and pay off my student loans and house mortgages, while my 8th computer, I've just downloaded the Unity engine and I'm trying to perfect the Battle Royale formula and take over the Fortnite/PUBG video game streaming space, and then at nights I am recording music on SoundCloud under the name XOXO4206969. You can find my mixtape on there. I wanted to send in this transmission this week, as I understand there will be some new content on the feed, just with a very crucial and important announcement. That is, at the time of recording, it is 10:22 p.m. on Monday, April 9th, 2018, and I wanted to alert everyone to the fact that this upcoming Wednesday is the holiest of days, known as my birthday. Being the founding patriarch and oldest reigning champion of the Indieheads podcast, aka father to you all, I would like to pass down a decree that this being the week of my birth, for the next 7 days, no one on the internet is allowed to say anything bad about the 2017 studio album Everything Now by the Montreal indie rock band Arcade Fire. You're not allowed to post it on Twitter.com. You're not allowed to post it on the Indieheads subreddit. You're not allowed to post it in the YouTube comments on this video. And you actually aren't allowed to think anything bad about Everything Now, which is, of course, a fantastic album, as we're all aware. Now that I've said this, it has been cast into law. If you've heard it, it's like the movie The Ring, and if you have a bad thought about Everything Now, I will crawl out of your television screen and play infinite content until your ears bleed and your eyes roll out of their heads. Thank you for your time, and remember that Everything Now is a great album. Enjoy the show.
I love this one.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Indieheads podcast. I am your host, Matty, a.k.a. at Monrovian Prince on Twitter. On this week's podcast, we have...
Hi, it's Britt, at SupBRuss on Twitter.
Hello, it's Jackson, at horse_jeans on Twitter.com.
Hey, Zach here, at Waffle113 on Twitter. I'm recording this on my phone, and I'm also watching Raw after WrestleMania, so this is probably going to be a disaster.
Hey, it's Dylan. I have a Twitter. Check out my Twitter. You'll find a link for it somewhere. Yeah.
Did you changed it again?
Woo!
You changed it again, didn't you? Do I'm looking at the schedule. Yeah. You changed.
Stop! Gotta love
it makes branding. The links when I put the links in there. It makes them not function. It's like you purposely don't want people following you on Twitter.
That's a really weird concept.
I wonder why.
So bizarre.
It's not worth it. When you have too many people following you, all your comments become is just thirsty Twitter boys.
Okay.
Fun.
All right. Anyway, hey, welcome back to the podcast. We're back, baby.
We forgot AJ.
We're better than ever. AJ. Well, here's the thing. AJ told us that he's going to record a cold open. I don't know what it's going to be, so we have no reaction for it.
If you're listening to this, you've probably heard AJ scream about Everything Now for 3 minutes or something like that. We
can only guess.
We have no idea. Whoever's listening to us knows more about the cold open than we do. So
yes, so we will find out what AJ has said after we finish recording, or even once this episode goes up. I'll know, and I'll be like, oh fuck, maybe I'll splice in a reaction, but whatever the case may be, hey, we're back, baby. We're better than ever, and you know who's back and better than ever, or maybe not. We're gonna find out. Arctic Monkeys. We're gonna get to the news. they announced their new album, Tranquility Base, Hotel, and Casino, which comes out on May 11th. And so, full disclosure, we're going to do a bit about this album. We're going to do a little bit on the podcast, but Zach intervened and was like, "No, stop being mean, guys. Like, don't be mean. Don't be mean to the mega successful rock stars who are probably all millionaires at this point, but all of them probably fuck models at this point, like every day of the week. Let's be nice to those guys."
I don't know how Alex Turner can fuck a model anymore when he looks like the fucking Wolfman.
Again, he does look like the Wolfman.
Guys, why are you using that? Guys, stop using that word I use. It makes me feel bad.
But again, so they announced a new album. As far as we know, there is going to be no singles for this album. So pretty much, we're going to get it again. The first thing we hear from this album is going to be the whole damn thing. But I want
the album title straight up sounds like it's a fucking vaporwave shit on like Bandcamp or something. Like,
yes, exactly.
Jesus Christ.
I read the track list, and I just I've never had something where I was just like, yeah, that's gonna be a no from me, dog.
Well, hey, Jackson. Speaking of, let's list
I'd rather not.
Let's list out some of these. Let's talk about some of these song names. All right, so the one that pops out the most to me is the world's first ever monster truck front foot, which I will say is
good. I like that one.
It's appropriating.
I don't like most of the
guys.
Yes, Zach.
That's the song on the edge of town. Anything called that? Oh God.
Zach is lagging. I can't. The album is simply too much for Zach. All right, he can't defend it because we have the world's first ever monster truck flip, which I think is appropriation of like redneck culture. As someone who is very indebted to the Rust Belt, that's very much appropriation. I don't dig it. Alex Turner. I don't appreciate that.
That's the thing is, it would be like a very good title of like a Mountain Goats song. But
I was thinking like sounds like a Mountain Goats lyric, but okay.
Yeah. Here's the thing though. We make fun of this, but like if this was like a Mountain Goats track list or like a fucking Sun Kill Moon track list, we'd be like, oh, this is the greatest shit in the goddamn world.
Yeah.
We just have very unfair standards.
But it's because we can read the tracks and we can think about what an Arctic Monkey song that embodies that track list. And like there's so many okay. I'll just read the track list for the viewers at home in case they're not tuned into the latest Arctic Monkeys news.
For like the three people who listen to us that have not checked out the track list yet.
Even so, like even if you have checked it out, it's worth reminding. The first track is Star Treatment.
That's
is
fine.
The first track. 1 Point Perspective, American Sports, Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, the title track, Golden Trunks. 4 out of 5. A shameless plug of Jeff Roadstock's 9 out of 10. The world's world's first ever monster truck front flip. Science fiction.
We will not talk about that album.
Yeah.
No.
It should just be redacted. It should be redacted.
She looks like fun, which is a song title that like makes my whole body feel gross when every time.
I'm not gonna be okay with that one.
And then ending off the album is track 10 and 11 with Bat Phone, one word, Bat Phone, and then the Ultracheese, which is and then Ultracheese is one word with, what do you do? Like this track list is the Ultracheese. That's what they're referring to by that.
Shout out to our good boy Gavin for saying that this track list is basically just an Aquabats album.
It basically is.
Oh my god!
I mean, but like that's the thing is like this track list implies a sense of like fun and like tongue in cheekness that they just like don't have at all to me, and like I don't know and also like we have no idea what this album is going to be musically. Like it could go in any sorts of way based on this track list and the way that the album cover and the way that I don't hate the album cover. The album cover is very, very nice and well designed, and I like the font on it. But yeah, I am very, very just like concerned going into this album. I would like to be proven wrong. In fairness to the Arctic Monkeys defender on this podcast, Zach, I would like to be proven wrong. I'm not going into this like it's gonna be garbage, but like very concerned, very, 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 very concerned with the only rock band that is like having any notoriety right now. Really, in like the kind of classical rock band sense, starting their album with a song called Star Treatment just reads as like, oh, they've let this all go to their head, haven't they?
How much
oh
do you
boy.
think like you to it? Just like go full on, like no actual self-awareness with the actual music behind the tracks? Like the track name?
I would kind of like that. Like if they just like triple down and like we're gonna ham it up, we're gonna Ultracheese. If that's what they want to do, if they want to crank the Bruce Springsteen dials all the way up and try to make the greatest rock album of all time, I wish them luck. I hope they do it because it would be cool. It would be cool to have a band like that again that people actually listen to, because most of the bands who have that kind of like rock band ambition aren't cool anymore. This is like the only band that simultaneously has people who listen to it under the age of 25 and like also clearly wants to be rock stars. Like no one else wants to be rock stars anymore except for these fuckers. And I'm worried about that because it could end just so horribly and be so corny and lame. Because like we've seen very recently, and we'll talk about it in this podcast, when old rock people try to be rock stars, and you get Jack White albums. And so I'm concerned about what I'm concerned, but like.
Okay, Jackson, buddy, I get it. You're concerned about the fucking album, dude. I'm sorry.
I'm concerned.
We get it. Can we talk about this press photo, though? Can we please talk about this press photo? Literally, all these guys, they look like characters from an Alex Cameron album. They all look like different characters from, like, Force Witness. That was my first thought looking at this. Especially the fucker on the left. That fucker on the left, he's got the exposed little chest hair going. He looks like a fucking Alex Cameron character. Okay, you got the guy on the right. You get the guy on the right. It might be. She looks like fun. Like literally, is like, oh my god, this is gonna be like. Here's the thing. There's two ways this track can go. It's either going to be like a very like tongue in cheek poke at like toxic masculinity, which actually would be pretty tight, and I would go, oh hey, that's I'm okay with that name. It's tongue in cheek, but it also could go very badly and like, oh no, these guys are just like actually misogynistic. Oh no. But I have some faith in it that they're not actually misogynistic, despite the fact that they all look like sex creeps in this fucking press photo. All right.
Why does Alex Turner look so much like the Wolfman? Has anyone pointed that out to him?
Literally, I think really Dylan literally pointed it out like right away, or you might have actually. I'm not sure.
I did like right off the bat, but like not to his face.
It's the Wolfman. Anyways, hey, we've exhausted this topic, but let's get into the next bit of news.
The roast of Arctic Monkeys.
Okay, next bit of news. Dylan, pal, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm gonna let you handle this one. You got this?
Okay, I think I got this. Okay, so Oneohtrix Point Never, aka Daniel Lopatin, aka Chuck Pearson, aka my very good bleep dad, announced his new album. It's titled Age of, and I think there was a Myriad video that he put out last month that serves as basically a single for it. Even though that video was like a promo for just like his live shows in New York for like this art exhibit or something like that. But also, it is also the album cover is probably the best thing I've ever fucking seen in my entire life.
It's good.
Amazing. It's amazing. The bleep that. Oh, I've probably talked about this before with Oneohtrix Point Never, but seeing him live back in like 2016 during like Pitchfork was like a very a very good experience because it was like the last set of the night. I was with Alex and Jake. I think we were watching FKA Twigs, and for whatever reason, I just felt very deeply uncomfortable watching her. I don't know what it was. It didn't feel right being there. I will not reveal why because I don't even know why myself. I was just like, this doesn't feel right. I'm going to head out of here. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'm gonna go check out Oneohtrix Point Never. I'm gonna watch a bunch of college white kids try to mosh pit to this music, even though there's no like. It was the funniest fucking thing because you have all these fucking shirtless college kids. They're trying to mosh to this music, but there's like no like consistent beat to do it to. So they're just like, so they're trying to mosh, and then the music like kind of like stops or like just kind of goes to a slow part, and they're kind of waiting to start moshing again, and it doesn't go back to the fast pacedness. So they're just like, okay, what the fuck do we do? It was great. Great experience. Maybe very uncomfortable in the right ways, and I'm excited about this album. And good things for the Danny man. Again, he had won the damn Palme d'Or. Was it? No. He won. It's not the Palme d'Or, but he won the award at Cannes for the best soundtrack. So, oh shit! Can no one hear me right now?
I can hear you. You're good.
Okay, we're talking about Zach. Never mind. Okay, yeah, Zach's got mic issues. Anyways, hey, I'm interested. I'm excited. The album cover's fucking amazing. Like, goddamn. I literally might buy it on vinyl just to have that album cover in my possession. Like, I don't know if I'll pre-order it, but I'll probably get it at like Pitchfork this year because it's just like I just need to have that like framed in my room somewhere. It's beautiful. Well, we're probably gonna make it the thumbnail, honestly. So.
It's better. It's better. But no, OPN is by far my favorite music producer that is working right now. He's just killing it everywhere. Garden of the Elite was the most absolute bonkers thing I still have ever heard in my entire life. He's fantastic, and he can do no wrong. He invented vaporwave. He made fucking R+7 and Replica. He's best friend with Tim Hecker. He hangs out with FK Twigs everywhere. Like, the man can do no wrong in my book. So, you know what? This is probably, even if it turns out to be just a massive disappointment that does not live up to any of my expectations, it's still probably going to be my album of the year. So take that as you will. But from the little snippet that we got from Myriad, it seems like he's just going straight into like RuneScape, like Age of Wonders bullshit, like late 90s PC game soundtrack shit, and I'm extremely here for it. The man just loves to switch it up album to album, and now he's just going full on. Is like, hey, remember back during like the early days of the internet when literally every PC game was just like a fucking point and click? Like, this is gonna be it. It's gonna be like a nightmare version of Monkey Island, and I'm so ready for it.
It's gonna be a good one, folks. All right, Bleeps is back, baby. It's good again. Woo! That's a wolf howl. Shouts out. Hey, any more thoughts on Bleep Dad that we didn't hear? Jackson, your thoughts on Bleep Dad as a Bleep nephew?
As a Bleep nephew, I am excited for this album. I'm excited that for whatever reason, the heavy hitters in electronic music just decided to come with all of the dicks out this year. It's just, it's really great, and we're gonna get some really good electronic music this year, and I'm excited to talk about all of it, including this album.
Boom!
Hell yeah!
All right.
We have more Bleep Dads to talk about in a minute, but that's in a minute.
In a minute.
We have two pieces of sad news to talk about first.
Yes. The first sad bit of news, yes, thank you, Jackson, is that Anticon founder Brendon Whitney has recently passed away at 41 years old. 41's way too young to die. It's fucking tragic. I don't really know who Anticon is, but again, 41 is too young to die. And from what I read about this, it just seemed like he was a really well-loved person that helped a lot of people out in their music careers, and he'll be missed for damn sure.
I've listened to a couple things on Anticon. Deej just put out a couple EPs on Anticon. I know Antoine and some stuff on Anticon. They're a very good label, and they did good stuff, and it's a bummer.
And, and the other bit of sad news, unless anyone has more to say about Anticon, is that the Thermals have recently disbanded. They announced today on Twitter, and I think just a general press release that they'll be breaking up. Seems like a mutual affair between everybody. Just like, hey, we're kind of we kind of exhausted ourselves with this stuff. We're done, So, still very sad.
Can I?
Oh yeah, Zach. Okay, Zach is back.
Zach.
Zach, you take the wheel on this one.
Yeah, I know Ethan is probably a bigger fan of the Thermals than I am, but I'm fucking bummed about this. If you haven't listened to The Body, The Blood, The Machine, go do that. It is it's one of the best political, air quotes, albums of the Bush era, and it still holds up frighteningly well today. I'm actually planning on writing a bit about it later on this summer for consideration, but they just make really great music. I love Body, Blood, Machine. I really like Now We Can See, and it's just a bummer that they're calling it quits, but it's a great career, and they're doing it on good terms, so I guess good for them.
Yeah, that's all I can really say.
Also, they had a really funny tweet just now, which they tweeted about the person. Well, let me read exactly so I don't just. They tweeted, "I can't believe Lindsey Buckingham is trying to steal my thunder today," which is very funny.
I appreciate that.
Imagining your band is breaking up, and then a more famous band has a member leave the band, and you're just like, what the fuck? We're not even the biggest band to have a member leave or break up today. Mm-hmm. So shout out to that Thermal.
Very fucked. But it's not fucked. Drag City. Well, actually, it might be fucked. We'll discuss. Drag City. They have officially expanded their streaming catalog, as a lot of the stuff on their label is now on Spotify. So you can check out artists like Bill Callahan, Silver Jews, Ty Segall, and a lot more on Spotify now.
With one notable exception.
Actually, two.
Joanna Newsom.
There's two.
Two notable exceptions.
Joanna Newsom and okay, I know there's
Bonnie
another
Prince
one.
Billy.
Well, here's one of them. There's three. It's fucking who's the guy with the album cover? It's pink, and there's a fucking baby in the middle of it.
Jim O'Rourke.
Jim O'Rourke. Thank you, Zach. Thank you. Yeah, those are three. But the biggest one is, obviously Joanne Newsom, who hang on, let me look this up. Just she has a quote on Spotify. I should have actually pulled this up before the
Something about bananas, right?
Yeah, she hates Spotify as much as she hates bananas or something like that.
Oh yeah, Spotify is the banana of the music industry. It just gives off a fume. And the full quote is, Spotify is like a villainous cabal of major labels. The business is built from the ground up as a way to circumvent the idea of paying their artists. Which is, it's correct. It's really correct, actually.
Not inaccurate.
Not inaccurate at all. But I think it's definitely...
It's one of those things where, I support Joanna Newsom, and, I would like her to make more money from her music, and I'm glad that she's successful enough that she can afford to take this stance against Spotify, but I'm torn between that and wanting to go 3 billboard style and put up a bunch of billboards outside Drag City 3 weeks and still no divers on Spotify. How come, Drag City? I agree with it intellectually 100%, but also I want it. I want her music on Spotify so that I can listen to it.
I'm just imagining that video of the Alex Jones videos where he's chasing after the guy. Coward. To Drag City not putting Joanna Newsom on Spotify. Which, by the way, motherfucker.
Joanna Newsom's probably the only reason I would consider switching to Apple Music, but I'm
she's not even on Apple Music, I don't think. Is she on Apple Music?
Really?
I'm gonna check. Let me check, because I have both, so let me check really quick. But I'm pretty sure she's not even on Apple Music. but I might be
I thought she
wrong.
was.
I might be wrong. We're gonna figure this out. But
If not, I have to wait until I go back to the States because I don't have her albums on me with me right now. The hell is this?
okay, I am wrong. I am very wrong. Her stuff is on Apple Music.
It is, yeah. She's all up on Apple Music. Divers have one on me. It's all on there. Yeah.
So I'm just a lazy fuck for not like getting into her that heavily.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
hey.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Like, I understood wanting Joanna, but like now I can listen to Dream River all I want, and that's good. Like, Dream River is a beautiful album, and I'm grateful that I can listen to it without having to go to YouTube.
Yes, it is nice to be able to listen to like Tai Seagal and Sulfur Jews and stuff. It's cool. It's cool that Drag City's on Spotify now, in part.
You still can listen to Joanna Newsom on Spotify, but it's like the Muppet song.
Yeah, that's literally it. It's literally a fucking song from the Muppets soundtrack. Amazing. But hey,
Yeah.
Dylan, it is time to talk about more bleep dads. Yeah, more.
All right,
more
let's
bleep
talk
dad
about more.
news.
These are more of like bleep grandads at this point, actually. But
So-
recently, Autechre announced that they would be doing a NTS radio session for the entire month of April, which also includes releasing 12 hours of new music. You can go and
God.
order right now on their Warp site. The CD box set is $50. The vinyl box set is $160. And I'm getting, I mean, do not get me wrong. I love Autechre. I love my glitch dads as much as anybody else. But what the fuck, guys? Like, I thought LSEC was bad 2 years ago. LSEC was just, oh my god. I survived that shit. I had to rip it off of Mew. Not even Mew. I had to go into, like, the archives and rip, like, find a thread to rip LSEC 1 through 5 from there. And you still can't buy that physically. You can't stream it anywhere. I mean, you can stream the first one on Spotify, I think, but that's about it. But LSEC 2 through 5, you know, like, good luck finding that if you don't, like, have a source to pirate it from. However, you know, with this shit, like, I appreciate them giving us new music, and I appreciate them, like, being very active and still, like, conforming to this idea of like bleep and bedroom electronic music being having this aura of mystery behind it. But fellas, I'm a college student, all right? I don't have the money to drop $50 bullshit like 12 CD box set, okay? I'm sorry. I'm just over here. I'm trying to eat. I gotta go to class, you know. I just wanna listen to some good bleeps and bloops, and you're draining me of all I got, and you know.
Do you have Stockholm syndrome to Autechre, Dylan?
It's really like Stockholm syndrome to like the big three. Like, I thought I had Stockholm syndrome when Boards of Canada put out Tomorrow's Harvest, and they like shipped like mysterious, like, unmarked test pressings to random people, and we had to, like, decode it. I thought I had Stockholm Syndrome when Aphex Twin released Cyro in the fucking Deep Web in 2014. Like, it's really ridiculous what the big three are putting me through, and, I keep coming back, baby. I keep coming back because I can't get enough of that beautiful robot music. All right, that's it. I'm done with my soapbox. That's it. I'm done.
All right, Dylan, we'll catch up with Dylan right about now, actually, because we have our main topic for the night. We're not gonna talk. There's Empress Sylvan here, but we'll talk about it in the next episode. She's got new music coming. Me is the pop album of the decade. We already know this. New album, new song. It's going to be great, hopefully. I really hope, honestly, because I don't really go to hell all that much. But hey, main topic time. It is, well, we say quarter one catch-up, but it's more like the March catch-up, because we're mainly talking about March albums, because we've already done, like, We already did a January catch-up. We already did a February catch-up. Probably some other catch-up in between. I don't fucking know. Hey, it's the March catch-up, even though we're, like, about to hit midway through April. Who gives a fuck? We'll talk about some April releases towards the end. But it's time, baby. It's time. Let's talk about some... Let's roll through some albums.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to start off with Dylan. Dylan, what is the first album we were talking about tonight?
All right, so the first album that we're talking about is the big one, the heavy hitter of the month, and that was Mount Eerie's, Phil Elvrum's, what's the word I'm looking for?
Now only.
It was his, yes, Now Only. It was his follow-up to A Crow Looked at Me. That's what I was looking for, follow-up. Follow-up to A Crow Looked at Me is the new record, Now Only, and you're going into this album, I mean, you understand, I think if you understand Phil, you understand that this album is still coming from a context and circumstances that are still deeply personal and also very much alike his last album, which was our album of the year last year. And the thing about Phil and the thing about Now Only is that it feels much more cohesive, whereas like I consider A Crow Looked at Me to be like diary entries, basically, just like the deepest, like most raw form of human emotion that someone just decided to put over music, whereas Now Only feels much more like a musical product. There's still that very like raw emotion that is just kind of unprecedented in, especially the singer-songwriter genre, but just in music, popular music at large. And it really just comes to the arrangements. The difference between Now Only and Crow Looked at Me, for me, are the arrangements, the musicality of it, because it feels much more like Phil sat down in a studio and had an idea of how this was going to sound, rather than just kind of leaving us a confessional. And whereas Crow was kind of like in this landscape of the like immediate aftermath of Genevieve's death, this is more about finding the light, I think. And I've been listening to a lot of like Jason Molina and Magnolia Election Company the past couple weeks, and I very much relate Now Only sort of to Jason Molina's work, or his highest work, in that it comes across as if Phil is trying to fight whatever is haunting and tormenting him. It sounds like he's desperately working to find the good left in his life, and just not taking it for granted and finding a way to move forward. And that's a lot of the time, I think that's the hardest thing that we as humans can do, is just try to acknowledge that we have to move on from certain things. And certainly Phil, you know, he's earned the respect, he's earned just the massive critical acclaim that he has gathered over the years, and that he gathered again on this record. So this is not meant to be in any sort of disrespect to him or his art, but I think he'd appreciate just like having people finally again take note of his art in a very subjective, individual kind of way, you know, an interpretive kind of way, rather than just having everybody be like, oh, this is sad music for when I want to be sad, you know, yeah, I'm going to go, you know, listen to Now Only and cry for an hour. It's like, no, that's not what he's trying to do with this record, and that wasn't what he was trying to do with Crow. It's confessional, it's deeply revealing to his psyche, and I think for him it sort of serves as a form of therapy, of release,
I think he, as much as he wants you to be respectful about his music, he also doesn't want it to be like forever you can't say anything critical about his music because he has a dead wife. You know what I mean? It's like people. I think with the last album, obviously, when people were talking about it in like a critical sense, people wanted to be like very respectful because it's like really wild that he was like opening up about a lot of this stuff and making music about a lot of this stuff. But like I think the thing that this album does is it's not like he's gotten over anything. I think using that kind of terminology implies that it's like less devastating, and in some ways it is less devastating as you get further from it. But it's more about like this album leaves the confines of the house they lived in and like the immediacy of the tragedy. And like in this album he talks about like moments in their past, like 10 years ago, and he talks about things that have happened to him since then that don't have anything to do with her specifically, but like talking about the ways that those things in the past and those things that are happening now in many ways are colored by the fact that she's not there anymore, and how his life is different now, and how he's coming to terms with a lot of that. And in many ways, like this album it's simultaneously more focused in that these songs do feel like songs, and they feel like they are a little more substantial in the way that they're structured and things like that. But then also like this album is a lot more sprawling, and instead of having shorter, more kind of topically focused songs, these songs tend to meander and wander over longer lengths than the last one did. And this one really feels like, I mean, he's talked about this album, there's going to be a third album basically in this like series of works. So this is like kind of the second of what will probably be 3 albums that are largely devoted to this kind of topic and theme. And it seems like this is kind of this like big middle piece that like that'll hold this like kind of trilogy together almost. That's this sprawling with these longer songs that there's less of them. And I really, really love this album in a different way than I love. I think one of the moments I do want to talk about, just as like a jumping off point, is the part in this album when a chorus comes in for the first time in an album and a half is one of the most genuinely like unique musical moments of the year, because he manages to do the most surprising thing I've heard in a piece of music in a long time by doing the most conventional thing I've heard in a piece of music. Because for like an hour worth of music from the start of Crow Looked at Me to all the way into the point of that album where that chorus comes in. What song is that on? It's on I'm not remembering off the top of my head.
Is it Two Paintings, I think?
No, it's not. It's not Two Paintings. It is is it Now Only? Is it the title track?
I think it might be the title track, yeah.
I think it is the title track. And it's this chorus where he's like, some people will die, some people get hit by cars, but it's this like kind of sing-song.
Oh, yeah. No, that is the title track. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and it's so funny because like I said, like we've gotten a full like album and then two long songs into this album before you hear like a chorus that has a clearly like intentionally catchy melodic structure, but the chorus is literally, but people get cancer and die, people get hit by trucks and die, people just living their lives get erased for no reason, with the rest of us watching from the side. And there's something about the way that he makes this so like funny and like kind of like off-putting, and like it was kind of Phil's way of like, yes, I'm talking about this really tragic event in my life, but please, you don't have to treat everything I'm doing with this seriousness for the rest of my life. Like, take a second here to laugh at this funny moment in this album. And also the way that he surprises us by doing literally what is like the most conventional thing in music, which is having a chorus that's catchy and melodic. Like, that's just like the most straightforward thing to do on an album, but the way that it's utilized against your expectations is so smart. And it just was like, hey, like Phil wants you to enjoy listening to his music, and at some point he wants to be able to make music that doesn't make you feel horribly sad. He's just using music as a way to like navigate through the realities of his life. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about this album, is seeing him move past kind of the subject matter of the last album, not in that he's gonna leave that behind him and stop talking about it, because it's still like, it still colors every day of his life. It's still, it's gonna be a part of him for the rest of his life, but moving past it in a way that it doesn't have to, he's not letting it rule his life in the same way that it kind of does in the immediacy of it. And I think that's what's cool about this album.
Like how, yeah, no, I agree with you, Jackson. And then like in regards to how like Crow was discussed a lot last year, even, you know, like online, there was always this sort of, it felt like there was this hushed tone about it, you know, where it's like, you know, it's like you shouldn't talk bad about this album because, you know, it's about a guy's dead wife, and, you know, won't you feel like shit? You know, talk about this album. And, you know, I'm not saying, you know, I dislike Crow Looked at Me. Crow Looked at Me was... It's
a masterpiece, yeah.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. It was my album of the year last year. Like, it's incredible. But I can understand why people weren't so attracted to it, because it's very sparse and it's stripped down to like bone marrow, basically, where it's just Phil like strumming a guitar in like his back room or something like that. And so on Now Only, it's much more, it still has that very like bare bones production style to it, but the production style still lends itself to just a lot of texture and a lot of harmony. The arrangements and sonically, you know, these arrangements are really incredible. And I think they're kind of the thing that, again, sets this apart from Crow. Because if we just got, you know, like a bunch of like extra songs that like Phil was like, hey, I didn't put these on the last album, here you go, I'd be like, hey, this is pretty cool. But like, I don't know if I would go back to them quite as much. Whereas this just feels much more complete. And again, musically, I much prefer this to Crow. Lyrically, you know, this is still like along the same lines of just throwing metaphor and symbolism just completely just out the window, and just allows for Phil to be very direct, very purposeful, and but still in a way where the themes of the album and the themes of each song still reveal themselves in a way that isn't like spoon feeding it to the listener, you know? It's something that just very like heavily deconstructs. And I think in Phil's MA, he talked about being greatly influenced in this writing style, this lyrical style, by I watched the film The Song of My Name.
Wait, sorry, I was trying to do the Social Network thing. I thought you were ready to mention Mark Kozlak. I just wanted, sorry, apologies.
I was actually, yes, I was.
I was gonna bring up Mark Kozlak in my next point. Believe it or not, plot twist for me in my life. But the fact that somehow like if we were taking bets like 2 or 3 years ago, which indie folk singer-songwriter was going to mention Skrillex in a song first, I certainly would have picked Mark Kozlak, or maybe Father John Misty. The fact that on Now Only, he tells a story about standing in the dust next to an idling bus with Skrillex inside and the sound of subwoofers in the distance, that just it's the feeling where he's like been invited to a music festival to play these songs, and like just feeling so like cosmically weird, like being outside of a place where Skrillex is playing music and being like, this is so weird that I'm here talking to Father John Misty and Wise Blood, who also gets a shout out.
Wise Blood, man, that was again, like I said, I heard most of these songs live when I went to see him in Chicago with Jake. And I was like, as soon as I heard Wise Blood, I was like, yes, like, this is great. And I got to talk to Phil about it after the show, and it was, again, good times. But this album is very good.
Good. Going back, is very good. Going back to the chorus, I think the chorus of Now Only, and then immediately followed by what comes after it really sums up what this album's about, because the chorus is like the complete nihilism of the last album of like people get cancer and die, people get hit by trucks, people living their lives get erased for no reason. And then the immediately following that is he says, and some people have to survive and find a way to feel lucky to still be alive to sleep through the night. That's like what this album is. It like is the way he does that chorus post-chorus right there is like it demonstrates that nihilism and like the worst of it is still like right there, but then also it's like, but I'm still here and I still have to be at this music festival with Skrillex, and I'm gonna have to be alive through all of this and care for my daughter and continue to find ways to make this not feel weird. And that is kind of what he's tasked with on this album. And in doing so, he continues to return back to some things about Genevieve, and he goes back to his past before meeting her, and he brings in all this other life that surrounds it in a way that is super interesting and is it's really, really good. I love this feels like the only logical way he could kind of have gone next. It just makes so much sense when you listen to it. Like, of course, this is where he had to go with this next, and it's really cool that happened.
Yeah. I also love the idea of him like going back to like his older songs, because he pulls the opening of, I think it is Two Paintings, either Two Paintings or Earth, that he pulls the opening of Oh My Heart off of Lost Wisdom from 10 years ago. He just goes back to that chorus and that melody and just pulls it and puts it back in here. And I just love the idea of like art not being stagnant and artists being able to go back into their own work and realize, hey, I can still do something with this. You know, I can work with this in some way that feels like a maturity in my work. And so for him to just go back to like a short, like 30-second intro to a 20-minute album that he wrote 10 years ago in like a hotel, like it's great. It's really incredible, and I love it.
It was Two Paintings. You're right about that. That's the song where he does that.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah, like, because the last album was so self-contained. Everything about the album was about the weeks before and the weeks after and everything. Sorry, and like everything.
People
everything,
get cancer and die.
Yes,
Please don't do that.
yes. It was so focused on the minute details of like their house and their life and just the immediate, because I mean that's really all you can really see and deal with and handle. And the fact that on this album, like on the first track, he talks about like back when they were two young people traveling around, and like we really get like more of a portrait of his life in a way that you don't really on Crow, and how that's contrasted with him still talking about what happened and all of it. It's such an interesting way to kind of approach this topic.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just I think we should move on now, because
we have 12 more albums to talk about.
Oh.
We have 12 more albums.
Yeah.
Probably more. So
Yes, you do.
no,
But
and I feel
Phil
like
Elverum is good. He's my friend. I support him with all my heart. I will give him my money more in the future. He deserves it.
I have no doubt that Now Only is going to be somewhere in the pod, like top 10 at the end of the year. Like, I feel like that's already given. But I think this album is incredible. It's just, I'm still picking it apart, but it's, I don't know. I love it. And also, Phil, if you ever listen to this sometime in the near future, please, I beg of you.
Phil, come on Indieheads podcast.
I mean, I have.
Actually, no, I'd be too scared to talk.
I mean, I got the AMA set up, but at the same time, it's like I don't want to poke it. I don't want to poke the bear because it's like I'm already shocked that he went on the subreddit. I'm like, I don't want to push it farther than I need to. It's like, hey, got him on the subreddit.
He like through the subreddit too. He was like reading on like some random thread of his. And he was just like, okay.
The thing about Phil that is great is that as much as he incredibly important serious art, he is at his deepest core a shitposter, and that's why we love him.
Again,
I was going through his Twitter the other day and just like through his likes, and just there's so much shit posting that people just like tag him in, and he'll just be like, "Yeah, I'll give that a like, sure."
All right, moving.
all right,
Right.
Britt, you're up on this for this next
Yep.
one. Again,
I'm
sponsored
still like,
sponsored
oh,
by the
thank you.
brands. This next sound we're talking about is sponsored by the brands. So
Yeah. So this one's been a bit of a polarizing album. Superorganism, self-titled, and unfortunately we could not get Alex on the pod to defend this more. So you basically just get to hear me go meh the whole time, because I'm not on team this is an industry plant. I'm on team this is vapid and doesn't really do anything for me. And it's very, very frustrating to me because, like, on one hand, it has elements of everything I like. I'm a sucker for art pop, and I love this sort of thing. But I don't know why I don't like this. And I keep trying to. Like, I revisited it, like, 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, please, like, what? Click, come on, click. Just click. It's right there. You gotta. And it doesn't. So, like, the lyrics are just strange, and I like strange lyrics, and I like the instrumentation of it. Then she starts singing, and then I'm like, wait a minute, these lyrics mean nothing, and I don't care. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel kind of similarly. Like, I was like listening to it, and I was like, oh, this is super cool and like unique, and I haven't quite heard a pop album that sounds like this in a while. It does sound kind of like Oracular Spectacular, but it does its own thing. Like it is definitely, it has its own distinct sound and lane, and so I was like, oh, cool. Like like it was one of those things where you listen to it and like on first reaction, it's like I definitely will get into this, and then I just haven't, and I don't really have a particularly compelling reason for why. I just think that people who are like passionately angry about this band being bad are generally using this band as a straw man for something else that they're mad about online. Because like really there isn't anything like particularly offensive about this album. I just can't imagine people. I don't get people that are like, this is garbage. I think they're more mad about that this band has become popular and they don't see it or whatever.
It's an industry plant, Jackson. You know it. It's a conspiracy.
Yeah, I mean, well,
also, yeah,
I will say, it's weird.
No one on the internet knows what industry plant means. No one on the internet knows how to like songwriting credits work. No one on the internet actually understands the music industry at all. They just yell words when they don't like things.
Again, Superorganism, they're not an industry plant, but their rise is definitely like, there is some suspicions. Like, okay, that's kind of like,
it did happen all of a sudden, but that also does happen sometimes. Where like, I mean, like in the review of like the Superorganism album, I think they said like, this album is what it would sound like if the internet had a house band. And like, I think part of their rise is just that their like particular brand of like indie pop is like particularly like the kind of stuff that the blogs would like. And so I mean, they're very, what they very could be some sort of industry plant, or there could be some machinations that are pushing them up toward the top. But I don't think necessarily that's 100% of the reason why they've become popular in the last couple weeks. I also think it's because people like their music, and because the blogs like talking about fun new pop groups like this.
Yeah, I kind of realized while I was like in the middle of listening to it, I'm like, this is like the album embodiment of an H&M. It's kind of cheap, it's kind of fun, but like there's a lot of words here that like sound relatable and that you would see on like an Instagram picture. But like, at the end of the day, it's kind of cheaply made, and you're probably not gonna like. It's not gonna last for very long, and I don't think it's gonna. I don't think like 5 years from now I'm gonna be like Superorganism's like the best album ever, but I won't complain if it's like put on the radio.
That's a very good metaphor.
The embodiment of an H&M.
That's really all that needs to be
Alex
said.
thinks them a lot though.
Alex does actually like him. I think he basically just said it's like, I mean, it's
a really fun pop
spectacular. It's a fun pop album. I mean, like I said, I listened to it. I thought it was okay. I didn't really. There's not really much to get angry about it. It's just like, okay, this is just like kind of like a solid pop album. Well, again, it's a group that has a lot of potential that maybe is just like blowing up like too soon a little bit. There's still a lot of creativity here. There's still a lot of interesting ideas being thrown out there. So there's a lot of potential. Hopefully, it'll be met in the future. But I mean, for now, it's like okay, we'll see how this plays out. But very briefly talk about this next album because I just want to give it a shout out myself. This new album from Paul Cherry, his debut album, Flavor. I saw this guy open for Dent May a couple months ago, and I've been kind of keeping tabs on him since then. And he's playing Pitchfork Fest this year, and that's how I kind of was like, oh, this guy. I remember seeing him. He was pretty decent. And it turns like, oh, hey, he has an album coming out like this month. Like, okay, that's cool. And the album is actually, it's a really solid kind of indie pop album. A lot of jazzy undertones. Like, if you like Mile High Club, you're probably going to really like this album. Again, some really, really amazing songs in here. Like, Your Lighter is really great. Like Yesterday's really good. Just a lot of really good tracks here. Very short, solid, to the point indie pop in the vein of, like, Mild High Club or, like, some of the more, like, relaxed King Gizzard work. It's good. I definitely give it a very good recommendation, and also great album art too. So that's all I want to say. So listen to it, cowards, all of you.
I did listen to it, and I thought it was kind of boring.
Britt is kicked off the podcast. No more. Britt, you're gone. Get out of here.
I listened to the single. It was good. It was a pretty good single. I didn't listen to the album. I'll check it out.
It's very short.
It didn't seem to like do anything really original, so it was like,
We
there
gotta
are
get
other
out of
things I
here.
gotta go listen to.
Get out of here. Get out of here. Next album.
You know who did do something original is this next album.
Haley Hendrix, my girl.
This is a very good album.
I love her.
Britt.
I love this album.
Oh,
I
yes.
need to start a
Hi.
garden. Yes.
The Haley Hendrix Defender is logged on.
I've married 2 women this year, Caroline Rose and Haley Hendrix. So she made this wonderful little album, basically kind of talking about gardening and stuff and anxiety and growing, and it hit me at just the perfect time. Yeah. So I'm listening to it, and I'm just like, yeah, this is great to listen to on the metro and having a good time, but not really. And lyrically, it's absolutely gorgeous and quotable and great for an Instagram caption or two at some point in your life. And yeah, my thoughts are starting to kind of grow a little less cohesive right now. Sorry, it's like 4 a.m.
Britt is the only person on the Indieheads podcast who's ever been dedicated to like recording the Indieheads podcast because she's in Europe and she still gets on to record with us, and all of us are just like we can't because we're not. But yeah, this is a good album. It's a very
good album. I think you guys hit a lot of the points when you were talking about like the freshman pod. So I don't know if I have much new to add to it. But
yeah, we did talk a little bit about this. I hadn't
Yeah.
listened to this album at the time we recorded the freshman pod, but I have since, and I really oh boy did I like it. It's very beautiful, and the lyrics are really nice, and I really like the guitar work on this album, and it's very it's very unique in the specific way that she talks about some. It reminds me of a lot of other artists that I like, but she's definitely got her own spin on things, which is cool. And I like this album. Go listen to it. Next.
Yes, definitely go check it out.
Alrighty.
All right,
Dylan.
Ooh, okay.
Back on the bullshit.
All right. So this next one is from a wonderful, wonderful group that I enjoyed for several years now. It's Young Fathers with their new album Cocoa Sugar that came out back on March 9th. So it's officially been 1 month since its release. And this album is, to me, it's the textbook definition of just being utterly, utterly brilliant. I mean, Young Fathers is just unabashedly experimental, unabashedly avant-garde, and forward-thinking in music. And on here, they just sound unlike any other musical group, unlike any other artist that is out there making just anything, really. Not even just based on, the music, just on the very, like, quirky, interesting, and also very soothing and exciting in them, but also just in their harmonies, in their choruses, and thematically as well. I mean, they tackle just such a wide range of topics on this, from spirituality to masculinity to immigration and sexuality, and there's just so many ins and outs of this record that you can really say that any song basically on this album is the focal point of it, or is the, like, main source of being. It's like, yes, this is that song. This is what the album is about. This is the standout. Like, they're all standout, but also this has been my most listened to album of the past, like, 3 weeks. So I might be a little biased. But definitely just so unlike anything else that is out there right now. Giving it I mean, I think you give music brownie points just for being unique, for being experimental and pushing the boundaries of what you expect. And especially in, the 2010s, we've had just a great flush of artists bringing new sounds, new voice to, soul music, to alternative R&B. And here it really comes alive for me. I think this is their best album yet, and I'm someone who just really had White Men or Black Men 2 grow on me, who had Dead also grow on me as well. Like, this is their best work to date, I think. And to me, what blows my mind is that this doesn't even feel like the trio reaching the pinnacle of their potential. Like, it's very obvious that they still have more in the tank, that they have, like, more to go forward with. And for me, that's just so exciting, because you just never, it's very rare to have a group like this that just overall, top to bottom, is just so dedicated to building an image of, we are, progressive, forward-thinking. We are, like, the new in music, and they do so without really much caring about what anybody else does. I mean, there's definitely influences on this album. I think, like, Life of Pablo definitely has a very large influence on the sound of this record, but Young Fathers, they operate outside of the traditional boundaries of their genre and of popular music at large. And to me, I think that's really admirable and astonishing, especially, not just because they're, like, giving the finger to the man or something like that, but also just because they're just wonderful musicians putting out great music, and just so many bops on this record, top to bottom. My View is, like, the big single on this, and rightfully so, I think, because it has a lot of, like, crossover, like, mainstream potential behind it. But also you have, like, Tremolo, which is just a very haunting, like, slow burn of a song that just gets more and more anxious as it goes on. You have Wow, which is just, like, off the walls bonkers and progresses in a way that is so incredible. You have Toy, which is just this very interesting, quirky, and playful introspection on masculinity. You have like Boulder Girl and Holy Ghost, which are just both, again, I think they're both very similar songs in their thematic undertaking, but just sound just completely, like, sonically just unlike each other. I've been talking way too much about this album. I'm open up to any other discussion that anybody else has. I love this record. I love it.
Yeah, I just got to listening to it this week when I was trying to like play catch up too, because there was definitely some stuff I missed on this quarter, and I really liked what I heard so far, and I haven't like unpacked it that much. Initial thoughts have been like Toy and Wow have been like my favorite tracks, but I'm still going back and listening more, so yep, I like it so far.
The hook on Wow is literally just like the most fun thing I've heard this year in music. It's just, I said, wow, it's just so fun.
Yeah.
Fun. Everything on this record is fun. It just screams entertainment to me.
Yep.
And it's so passionate too.
All
right.
Yeah.
Speaking of not fun, very brief talk about this new Preoccupations record. So let's take it back. 2015, beginning of 2015, when Preoccupations was known as the problematic Viet Cong. What a shame that they make their best record with a problematic band name. That's just so Viet Cong again. Just this great post-punk record. But I think it's an album that came out very much like right place, right time for me, in that I was just getting into post-punk whenever it came out. And so it was like, oh man, this is so cool. But now two albums later, with the self-titled Preoccupations and this new album, New Material, they're boring. They're such a boring band at this point. Like, they got, again, there's nothing wrong with this album. It's a decently okay post-punk album. But, like, I just don't give a shit. They're not doing anything that's like really interesting on this album. It's boring. It's kind of it's short, at least. Like it's nice and short. But it seemed like with the lead single, they're gonna do something kind of interesting. Like, oh hey, it's like the call and response vocals. It's like, okay, that's an interesting idea. Is this gonna be like kind of like a Heartland post punk album? That could be an interesting combination. But the rest of the album is just like, oh, it's just like more like kind of boring, ethereal post punk. It's like there's no real good lyric. Like, you know, with Pro Martyr, they have that lyrical edge. Like, what's the lead singer of Proto Martyr? What's his name? Joe something. I'm gonna Google it.
He's got a name.
He's got a name.
He's definitely got a name.
It might as well be Joe something.
Joe Kacey. Joe Kacey. He has this really interesting vocal style, and his lyrics are really unique, and they have this sort of like, there's an actual like personal touch to the music. Ice Age, they're fucking great. You have again this eccentric lead singer. Who, again,
Ice Age about to drop the album of the year, folks.
They
you
might.
Heard it here first.
They might.
They probably will. Like, dead ass. Like, Ice Age on the way. Goat incoming.
They better drop the post-punk like album of the year, honestly, because I think just in general, post-punk has been having a year that's like, yeah, this album sounds pretty good, or this album is like, you know, it's not bad, but it's not like anything that it feels essential.
Dylan, I am hearing, I'm implying that some disrespect in what you're talking about, and I will not accept it.
Yes, no, there is some disrespect, not to disrespect Room Inside the World, but it could have been so much better than it actually was, is what I'm saying. It's a mess of an album, and it's a wonderful mess, but it's still a mess.
Okay, we can concur that Aut is definitely, at this point in time, they definitely have a unique space in the post-punk world currently. Can we at least agree on that?
Yes. They do, yes.
Again, you know, Tim Darcy is this very eccentric singer, and again, the what they're doing with with Room Inside the World, I think, is really interesting direction. But Preoccupations, again, it seems like they were attempting to go for like, oh hey, let's kind of add more new wave elements to our music, but they didn't fully commit to it, and that's annoying. Like, If you're gonna do the Ultracheese, commit to the Ultracheese. God damn it.
But I think really what was happening was like there were these post-punk bands that are making this music and like, wow, this is really cool. We want more of this. And some people were like, it sounds kind of samey, but I was like, really, I love post-punk music and just like I was like, you can never have too much of this. I'll love all of it. And this year I'm like, well, maybe I'm taking back that statement because at this point it just like I've heard so much of it over the last like 2 years with all the revival stuff going on. It's just like, probably we should just like at this point I'm just kind of focusing more of my attention on the bands that like very clearly have their own spaces staked out, like Ice Age and like Aut, and less so on like Preoccupations and like bands that are just doing like pretty good versions of stuff I've heard before.
Yeah, that's all I gotta say. I'm probably gonna see him in a couple months anyways because I do actually want to hear the songs I like, but yeah, it's a disappointment. I mean, I think the album title is pretty self-explanatory. It's just, hey, it's new material. Here's new songs. Here's new songs we can go tour with for like fucking 2 years on end, so we can make a goddamn living. Because being a touring musician is a fucking nightmare. So, shouts out. Next album, Zach.
To me, I had one more thing to say about the Preoccupation, because we didn't really talk about like the actual album itself a whole lot, other than just saying it's a disappointment. But I did say I am disappointed in this, especially considering that it just sounds like a regression even from the self-titled Preoccupations album, which was already a regression of the self-titled Viet Cong album. It's starting to get a little redundant. Anyway, but it just doesn't feel very interesting or immediate or like really just essential to me in any way. Which is weird to say that in like a year where both Aut and Preoccupations like released new material. I was not expecting to say Aut had the better album, but Aut had the better album. And that's just coming from like how Preoccupations, just from like their legacy from like the band Women and considering their like Viet Cong album, like it's just, to me, it's like I was not expecting that to happen, and I was expecting much more from Espionage than the rest of the album gave me. So,
yeah. All right, Zach. Then Zach, buddy, pal, it is time.
I wasn't really expecting to have to take the lead on this insofar as I can, because Britt just up and left out of nowhere. I hope she comes back soon, but I guess I'm taking the lead on the new the Lucy Dacus album. It's called Historian, and I'm going to be upfront. I haven't listened to it recently enough to have a whole lot to say about it, but what I remember is that it's a terrific indie rock, probably. You know what, I'm going to say it. It's the best one of the year. I'm sorry, Will, but it is. And Song of Truth, Pillar of Truth is the song of the year. And you can fight me on it. There you go.
It's really good. It's a good album. I like this album a lot.
Fucking ass,
well,
honestly.
We were going to put Lucy on our freshman list, but she's kind of already put out a debut on Matador before this, and so it kind of didn't quite fit the requirements of, like, brand new, but like, god damn it, is this album good, and is she awesome? And you should go listen to her interview she did on the Watch. Actually, no, don't listen to any podcasts that aren't this podcast. Only listen to us. But in case you've already listened to every single episode of the Indieheads podcast and you've run out of material and you're like, I want to listen to something else, listen to her on the Watch podcast with Andy Greenwald. She did a great interview over there where she talked about writing this album and a little bit about like her process and like kind of her lyrical style and some stuff like that. And she's cool as shit, and this album is cool as shit, and I really like all of it. I love Addictions. It's probably my favorite on the album, but Pillar of Truth is also amazing. Night Shift is also amazing. There's a lot of great songs on this album. It's a good album full of good music songs. Go listen to it.
Again, and we kind of talked a little bit about this like in the chat a little while ago, but there's a big wave right now in indie rock that is very heavily like lyrically centric, and this album definitely feels that way. but the thing about Lucy is that her storytelling abilities on this album are just really exceptional. I think they convey this sense of thematic purpose while also like rendering themselves to vulnerability and to like deep critical analysis. And that's what I love. That's what I love most out of lyrics, and especially out of singer-songwriters like this, is that just giving me substance to your work. And she like succeeds on that in like every level, and I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I came to listen to. This is, you know, it's bittersweet, it's melancholy, it's you know, just terrible stuff about love and relationships and fighting, just bullshit. I don't know, I love all of it. And she's a very, very talented singer-songwriter, and I'm very excited for the rest of her career, because I feel like she could possibly be one of my favorites of all time. Possibly.
Also, I think we've talked a little bit like just briefly, like there's been like a little bit of backlashes here. People are like, all of these female singer-songwriters, they sound the same. And while like like there's two things. One, the point of a lot of these singer-songwriter acts is that they're simplifying the musical, like the compositions of their music to emphasize their lyrical content. That's one thing. And the other fucking thing is that this album doesn't sound like all the other albums. People who say like, oh, you're hyping up that Lucy Dacus album, it just sounds like every other indie singer. No, it fucking doesn't. It sounds way different. It has its own shit going on within the genre of indie rock. Just because it's a woman singing over guitar doesn't mean you get to say it sounds like everything else. You're just doing a misogyny.
Like lyrically, like
this album is great.
Artists is very unique in how they approach their subject matter. However, you know, like sonically, you know, they might, you know, there might be a little bit of redundancy, and this might be like on the Camp Cope album where the music kind of like sounds the same as on their, you know, their original debut. But the thing about Camp Cope, and I'm just transitioning this over to Camp Cope, is that, you know, like it's not about the music. It's not about how the album sounds. It's about the lyrical content behind it. It's about the storytelling behind it. It's about the voice of, you know, the lyricists and of, you know, how the vocals coincide in helping to convey this sense of urgency or this sense of melancholy or this sense of deep grief or sadness or anger, you know. It's something along those lines, you know.
I agree.
So, yes. So there is.
Can I talk about it for like just a second?
Yes.
Go ahead. Yes, Zach, you're on this podcast.
Like, oh jeez, like I'm going to try to say that word that the meme says that I'm legally not allowed to say. But seriously,
Zach?
You know what? Actually, I'm gonna break the rule. I'm sorry, but like, if you can't tell the difference between like a Lucy Dacus or a soccer mommy or a snail mail, and you're saying, oh, they all sound alike, what with all these female singer-songwriters? I'm sorry, you're being a misogynistic fuckwit, and you.
Oh no! He said it. He said it. No.
You broke the chart.
No, but you're
it just makes me so angry.
Oh no.
It's Zach. It's almost like men on the internet will use arguments to try to diminish the artistic value of women who make music. It's almost like that happens.
Mm. While we're on this, shout out Mississippi, by the way.
I'm here. Oh my god.
It's back.
Britt is back.
Hey, you're back.
He's back.
I am here. I don't know how to help.
We were just talking about Lucy Dacus being good.
Yes, it's very good.
You missed Zach saying the dreaded F word. He said it.
Yeah,
it's recorded.
He's not allowed to say that.
Because online indie misogynists are awful people and they do not deserve my respect.
They don't.
There we go.
Alright, you could say it to online misogynists, but that's about it.
Alright.
Yay!
Moving on. We have more out. There's so many albums. So music is there's a lot of music these days, and there's a lot that we have to talk about.
Music is stacked.
Okay, this is one of mine next on the list. I'm gonna try to make it quick since holy hell, we have a lot of albums still to get to. But the new album from Yo La Tengo, it's called "There's a Riot Going On," and let's face it, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have at least an inkling of who Yo La Tengo are. They've been around for about 40 years at this point, and all of their stuff has been, well, it's ranged from good to downright transcendent. Like on "I Can Hear the Heart Beating" is one, or "And Then Nothing Turned Itself Inside Out." Those are both terrific albums, and the fact that
this is a painful fan podcast, by the way.
Oh yes, of course. But the fact that they're still turning out great albums like "There's a Riot Going On" almost 40 years into their career is unparalleled. It's astonishing, really. And like, yeah, if you're a Yo La Tengo fan, you know what you're getting at this point. But there are some, there are still some amazing songs on this record. Like "For You Too," that's really great. "Polynesia No. 1" is probably my favorite song on the record. It's just very sedate, very like relaxed noise pop, which is a particular niche of mine that I really like hearing filled. And like the bookend tracks, "You Are Here" and "Here You Are," they are fantastic. And Yo La Tengo Appreciation Podcast, that's what this is. And "There's a Riot Going On" is one of my favorite albums of the year so far, and I imagine it will remain that way for the rest of the year because it's really good and a really easy listen. So, like, go listen to it, I guess.
Yeah, I think if you listen to Riot Going On, you kind of know what to expect from Yo La Tengo. But regardless, this is just very nice, like, ambient noise pop. I use this album a lot, or I just use Yo La Tengo a lot in general, just for like, writing or reading or something like that. It's not to say it's background music, but it creates like a very particular, comforting, mellow atmosphere that I really, really just love to be enveloped in. So that's what this album does to me. It creates a certain mood that I just love to like get lost in, get just completely submerged by.
Speaking of moods and very big moods, this next album is a what I would call a colossal mood.
Good Christ! Okay.
The wacky. It's wacky. We got a wacky album up next.
It's pretty kooky, folks.
It's so weird. Oh man. Okay. David Byrne, American Utopia. If you listen to this podcast and you don't know who David Byrne is, you should probably stop listening to this podcast.
Go listen to Remain in Light, or go watch True Stories or some shit.
Remain in Light or 77. Or, like literally,
just go watch Stop Making Sense right now, like immediately.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. With this big suit.
But yes, David Byrne put out an album in 2018, and it's good. I like it a lot.
It's good.
It's very funky, and it's very there's a lot of moments of the sound that really make me want to dance. And he says some just absolutely wild, off the wall David Byrne.
Hey Jackson, do you dance like this?
I do dance like this.
Is everybody going over to your house?
Everyone is coming over to my house, indeed. Everyone is coming over to my house, and we're gonna dance there. This album is very my favorite. There's I think my favorite on this. I really love "Every Day Is a Miracle." I think that's a really, really great song. The collab with OPN, which is "This Is That." I don't know what it is about. I said this in the chat, but the combination of like old white rock dudes and OPN doesn't seem like it would make sense, but we've now in 1 year gotten a song with David Byrne and OPN, and then a song with Iggy Pop and OPN, and they were both awesome. They were both really good, and it's very cool to hear like one generation of experimental musician collaborating with another generation of experimental musician and have it sound so good. And in general, it's just very cool that David Byrne's going to be touring and doing shows and busting dance moves in big suits. And I'm happy this album exists. And also, even though it's kind of wacky and crazy, there's actually some very cool, like, political stuff that he does address on this album, even if some of it is a little too weird to really make heads or tails of in a coherent way. Some of it there's definitely moments in this album where I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good one right there. That one really sticks and makes sense with me, even if he can be a bit of a nut, as one might say.
Yeah,
and
he's he's a totally crazy guy.
Yeah, but he's a nut who talks about busting a nut.
Yeah, no, this
Does
is
he talk about busting a nut on this album?
Like,
there's a song on this album that he does talk about yanking it.
Dude, that's awesome.
there's also a song about how dogs can't drive. Like, they just don't know how to drive cars. And
I
also,
mean,
like,
is he wrong?
He's not
wrong.
He's
He's
not
not wrong.
wrong.
But then in an entirely different song, he talks about how the dog, like, the Pope doesn't mean anything to dogs. Like, the double-edged sword of David Byrne is that you don't know at a certain point if he's, like, being satirical of American society or if he's just, like, talking utter nonsense.
Guys, I think we
He
found the
just kinda-
true identity of
Just
drill
like
has been revealed, guys. It's been David Byrne all along.
The specific lyric from the song Dog's Mind is, now a dog cannot imagine what it is to drive a car, and we in turn are limited by what it is we are. It's some deep shit right there.
That's some deep shit, yeah.
No, but like actually that like even though it's ridiculous that he's talking about how dogs don't know how to drive cars, he actually is making a point about the fact that like we only know the things that we know, and he makes things in the most obtuse weird way his points in the most obtuse weird way possible. But he also is like a real human being from Earth who does have things to say about stuff. And sometimes it takes a little bit to decipher his lyrics from David Byrne to normal person. But there's stuff there beyond just that the dog doesn't know who the Pope is.
What does David Byrne wank it to? That's what I want to know right now. What does he wank it to? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Leave a review on iTunes. Let us know.
Yeah.
The thing about some of the songs on here is that they're just very catchy, like, pop songs. I mean, Gasoline and Dirty Sheets is one of my favorites off of this. Everybody's Come to My House is also, like, the big highlight here, too. Like, they're just very, well, none of them are really, like, Song of the Year material, I think. That it's just a very, like, lovely, enjoyable album. It's very Byrne-ian in a way, and you kind of just have to build your own assumptions from it, pretty much. But
Exactly.
It's not to say it's bad.
Speaking of jerking it, The Weeknd put out.
God damn it!
The Weeknd put out a project.
Say it again. Sorry. Oh god.
It's pretty clear what the Weeknd wanks it to. David Byrne, it's a bit of a mystery, but Weeknd, it's pretty obvious what he wanks it to. Hey, anyways, the Weeknd, he put out a new EP. It's called My Dear Melancholy. Sorry, Jackson, to steal your thunder on this
Pretentious
one.
comma added to it.
It works.
Pretentious comma. Don't forget the pretentious comma.
Yes.
There is a pretentious comma, as if he is writing a letter to his melancholy. I like this EP a lot. This EP project thing. I think in general, the idea of just putting out 6 songs is good, and I think a lot of big artists should do it more because it allows us to be excited about them without having to sit through a full 17-song bloated album that doesn't work as a cohesive piece of music. I like this project a lot. I don't love it. I think Lily put it best in that it sounds like old Weeknd mixed with Starboy kinda. It's got some of his and I think really the thing out here is the production is incredible. I mean, you've got 2 songs produced by Gesaffelstein, who is alive and he's making music. My fucking dad is back. please put out an album this year, Gustafsson, please. But even whether or not he does, it's very cool that like The Weeknd is collaborating with people like Gustafsson, and he's sampling Nico Jar, and the Skrillex song on here as well that I don't hate. And in general, I think this project is good in that it is like it's enjoyable, and it's definitely like more cohesive and than like any of his recent big albums that he's put out. But then like the kind of contrast of that is that like even though this does kind of sound like the old Weeknd albums in terms of it is a sad album about fucking and doing drugs, and it kind of just generally has the checklist of things that you think of the old Weeknd being. I'm not going to return to the same way I really return to anything on Trilogy. Like it doesn't have the same kind of or and I think part of that is kind of there is a certain romanticization of what the old Weeknd is that I just don't think we're ever really gonna get, because like we're like, oh, if only The Weeknd would go back to making the music he used to make, and like here he's making that kind of music again, and it's good. It's not bad, but it's not like we're not gonna get Trilogy again. And so this album, as much as I enjoyed it, it was kind of a reminder to me of like stop waiting for him to make Trilogy again, because he just isn't. Like he just is a different artist now, and I can appreciate this for what it is. I really like the Gustafsson synth lead on the first of the two songs. I forget the name of it, which is not a good endorsement of it's not a good endorsement of this album that I've already forgotten the name of one of the songs I like most. I Was Never There. I really like the synth on that, and I think Privilege is also really nice, and I really like Call Out My Name is a good opener. But it's like half really good and half forgettable, and that's my feelings on it.
It's very good.
Yeah.
It's very good. The thing with The
And now
Weeknd
for
is that
something.
the thing with The Weeknd that you have to reckon with is that on almost every level, The Weeknd is a terrible person. Like you just listen to this, you go, oh, this guy's into some really bad shit. Like he's not a good guy. But that's kind of why his music is so compelling, because he lives just like he's just this terrible person that lives this terrible life. But you're just so like, I want to hear more about this. Like
Captivating.
It's very captivating, and also Abel's cocaine dealer. I will pay an exorbitant amount of money for even just a teensy bit of whatever coke he's on. All right, I want it, and inject that shit into my veins, baby. It will probably make me a terrible person, but it's time.
Drugs are bad.
Yeah, I was about to say hugs, not drugs.
I can sum up what the sentiment you were saying with a very good tweet from my dear friend Cam, in which he said, "Future and / or The Weeknd, my entire persona and musical career is built on my compulsive mistreatment of women, but now one has hurt my feelings. Me, my boy, let me hold you. It's going to be okay. You are loved."
That's not wrong.
Which is basically like, yeah, it's like The Weeknd is completely a shitbag, but like when he's at his best, he somehow gets you to be like, oh my god, yes, give me this. Like this is great. And honestly, as like Lily and I have discussed at length, really when Weeknd is at his best is when he's at his highest levels of dirtbaggery and scumbaggery. And that's when we love him the most, is when he's his sleaziest and his most on lots of drugs, even though hugs are preferable to drugs.
Yeah.
Also, good self-esteem and those health synths, baby. Those health synths. Am I having a stroke?
Health.
Those health synths, they're
Health.
good, baby. Inject that shit into my veins. Actually, that's what I really want. But we gotta.
And
gotta
now
move
for
on.
something
I can't
move
believe
on.
we've made it
different.
this. I cannot believe we've made it this far in the discussion without talking about what may be the worst lyric of the year. And I know right now that we're not talking. I hope you know that this dick is still an option.
Okay, it's
Like,
bad, but I don't wanna,
come on.
It's
He's
bad.
very clearly He's very clearly still the same guy.
Oh,
from
you mean,
the
yeah, of
trilogy.
course.
It's just that we haven't heard this side of him in a bit.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But then the other thing is that when he says it in his
He
voice,
was gonna give his kidney to Selena Gomez, though, Zach. Could you forget? He was gonna take a piece of his body out for her. All right. Okay. Anyways,
God
next
damn.
album. Next album.
Okay.
Next album. Kacey Musgraves.
Next
Golden
album.
Hour. Let's do this.
In terms
Country is
of,
good again.
Yeah, in terms of plot twists that could have happened this year, the album that I would be we're doing like a like 10 or like 15 song catch up or however many albums we're talking about. We're talking about a lot of albums today. The fact that the one I'm the most excited to talk about maybe is a pop country album is not something that I saw coming in any shape or form. But here I am. None of my podcast members know this because we don't have video chat on right now. But I'm currently like just wearing a cowboy hat and cowboy boots, assless chaps, and I'm just like butt naked. And I am country now. I don't know how this happened to me, but yeehaw, indeed. I love Kacey with all my heart. This album is very, very good. I think this album, what it does really incredibly well is that it manages to like Kacey Musgraves is basically like this girl who was like raised on country music, but is also very clearly like new agey and very like not the kind of backwards or any of the negative stereotypes that people have about like Southerners or whatever. And she does a really good job at like making this really great indie pop music that still has a country twang and like will appeal to people who like country, but also appeal to people that are like, oh, I listen to every genre except for country, which is the exact kind of shithead I was at a certain point in my life. But then I realized that's just like, no, you just haven't been listening to the right stuff, and that all genres of music can be good to the right people at the right time. And this album is good. The production on this album is like impeccable. Like some of the guitars on songs like Wonder Woman and on there's just so many incredibly well produced songs on this album that
High Horse
has a great like almost disco-y beat, and she's singing with her twangy voice over it. And there's a really great moment on the very first song where she on Slow Burn where she talks about her grandma crying when she pierced her nose, but I think it's like this beautiful like summation of like who Kacey Musgraves is, where like she's coming from this world of like simple Southern values and upbringings, but she's like also someone who talked about how she had an acid trip when she was writing this album that inspired like a song on the album, and she's simultaneously like this vaguely almost queer like cool new agey hip like Carly Rae Jepsen type person mixed with like this she's like Carly Rae Jepsen and Taylor Swift, like their better qualities thrown into a blender and put out one really good pop album. And
it's not it's not like she's like not coming from like this background either. She's like from bumfuck East Texas. Like
exactly, yeah. But she like definitely doesn't like have disdain for that kind of like clearly there's a lot of moments in this album where she like the song Mother, where she talks about like she clearly has a lot of love for country music and for her roots and for all of that stuff, but she's also someone who's like willing to bring in kind of new ideas and sensibilities and make what is really, really more a pop album than it is a country album. I'm not going to pretend like this is like full-on country. This is definitely much more on the pop side, but god damn it, is it good pop music. I've described this album as Emotion by Carly Rae Jepsen wearing a cowboy hat. And just that alone is enough to sell me on this album. My favorite, I really love Wonder Woman. I think it's probably my favorite song on this album. Like some of her simple turns of phrase and her lyricism on this album is just so good. I really blown away. I haven't listened to anything by her before this. I'm gonna listen to Pageant. What's the name of her last album?
Pageant Material.
Pageant Material.
Yeah, I've been meaning to listen to that since listening to Golden Hour. I liked it a lot, and so I'm excited to hear what she's doing next after this as well, and what she's done in the past, because I wasn't hip on the Kacey Musgraves train, because people were like, she's country but good, and I was like, ah! And I didn't give it a shot, and I feel bad for that, because damn it,
she's also
she's cool.
Like when people talk about like modern country as well, I feel like a lot of people are like, oh no, I want that like old school like outlaw country, like the Jason Isbell or the Chris Stapleton and stuff like that, who have this very like particular sound about them. But Kacey Musgraves like fully embraces like old school pop country along the lines of like Dolly Parton, Willie Nelson, like very like very modern sounding country, but just does it in a way that is not completely shallow or vapid in any sort of way.
Exactly, yeah.
Lends herself to being a songwriter, which is the most like impressive, or not impressive, but just the most important quality and integral part of her entire act, I believe.
So I'm coming in with a steamy take right now. So I have never been a giant fan of country music. I was raised on country music, but I ended up losing respect for it when it just kind of became awful because I was listening to just the pop country, the arena country. At one point I went to a Gwen Stefani concert and Blake Shelton came out, and I've never seen Virginia Beach so excited ever. But anyway, back on point. I am one of those people that say outlaw country as in outlaw it. Get rid of it. We need to get rid of it. But there is a certain shelf of country music that I have, and it's basically the Dixie Chicks, Shania Twain, Dolly Parton, the Walmart Yodel Kid, and
damn it. God fucking damn it.
And honorary mention to Beyonce, because Daddy Lessons is country. But Kacey Musgraves has now entered that shelf, and she will stay there just because of Golden Hour. So she is protected country. She may stay.
Yeah, Kacey Musgraves, she comes from this tradition of country music. Like, it's not her selling point. Like, she obviously has great, like, respect for these past artists and also sort of, like, some modern artists as well. But, like, she does it in a way that doesn't feel like it's just entirely this, like, throwback sound, I feel like an accurate description of one was like Sturgill Simpson when he put out Modern Sounds. Like a lot of how the media pushed him was being like, hey, listen to this guy. He's not country like all the other country you know about. Like it was a very like hipsterish.
Like this sounds like the old stuff back before country got bad.
It was like a very hipster interpretation of country. And I love Sturgill. I think he's fantastic. But but Golden Hour is country in a way that feels very
modern and current.
It's very modern, very current. Yes.
I really liked she posted, and this was not meant to be disrespectful to Carly, but she posted a really great meme where it's the guy with the girlfriend who's turning his head, and it's the gays, and then it's the gays are turning their attention to Golden Hour instead of emotion to Carly Rae Jepsen, and that's exactly what this is. It's like country music for the gays, and I'm here for it. I'm here for our new like unproblematic fave, Kacey Musgraves. She seems really like great and likable, and I love her like personality in the song. Like you listen to these songs and you get a real clear sense of like who she, like what kind of person she is, and she's really good at like characterizing herself as a songwriter, which is great. And I also think a lot of these songs, they kind of have like an indie rock twinge to them almost. Like a lot of the like guitar parts in this album have a really like, if you like indie rock music, you'll probably like a lot of the instrumentals in this album. And like her voice definitely isn't like too twangy or too like if you're not someone who dabbles like kind of comparing it to like Jason Isbell and people like that. It's like Jason Isbell makes jokes about how people expect him to be like a horse repairman or something like that because he has that tweet. He's like because I make Americana music, people expect me to be like a horse repairman. I think with the
discussion with John Darnielle, it was so great. Jason's Twitter is so great. Shout out to Jason's Twitter.
And that is great. And like throwback country or like kind of outlaw country is good at doing what it does, but this is like country for people who like current modern pop. It reminds me a lot of like early Taylor Swift, but less more enjoyable and more 2018, and her personality on the songs is a lot better, and so I really love this album. Yeehaw!
Also, thanks Kacey for liking my tweet and making it kind of blow up with your fans, your little group of fans.
Can I say something that might be a little controversial?
Go for it.
This kind of goes back to what I was saying a bit earlier, but I think the emotion comparisons are lazy and bad criticism. Like, come on. Find a different comparison,
fair.
or better yet, think of something else. Because, like, this might be hyperbole, but I don't think I have heard an album quite like Golden Hour in quite some time. It's just a brilliant marriage of songwriting and production and vocalism that I think is something that's really unique. I like what Sam Sadomsky said about when he was reviewing the album for Pitchfork. She's just writing very simply about the world as if she's seeing it for the first time and relating it to you as if you're the first person to hear it. Like songs like
best new music.
Yeah, songs like songs like Slow Burn and Space Cowboy and High Horse, and especially Oh What a World. That's a great deep cut. They just exemplify that so well. It's just such an amazing album, and I wish that, and I love Carly, but I wish we didn't have to bring her into it every time a great female singer-songwriter comes out with a terrific album. Like, you don't have to do that every time.
You're 100% right. It's just that on the internet, every single pop album is emotion but different.
The internet is bad.
And I'm fully partly responsible for that, because it's very easy because that's the easiest way to get people on the internet to pay attention to your take about pop music is by comparing it to emotion. Which I'm fully as much as I love emotion, I'm fully aware that it's not the best comparison for everything. And I will agree with you that Kacey Musgraves is very appealing, and it's very in a completely different and unique way, and she should be respected at all costs.
Now only by Mount Eerie. It's like emotion, but really, really sad, actually.
Dylan!
All right.
Every album is like emotion, but different.
All right. Is it?
Benji by Sun Kill Moon is like emotion, but about Ohio and people dying.
And Panera Bread.
Hey, next album, The Voidz, Virtue.
Let's go.
We got two left.
Two more.
I don't know who wants to talk about this one first.
Yeah, there's a question mark. We have in parentheses. There's the name of the person who's going to lead the discussion. This one, no one wants to claim it, which is weird. Because it's not like Jackson. I think you volunteer as tribute for this one.
I'll volunteer. I just didn't want to claim it just because I haven't listened to it quite enough to really feel like the authoritative expert on the Virtue by the Voidz, which is the album we're talking about, in case that wasn't clear. Because this album is about as all over the place as it gets. Oh, I mean, besides the next album we're gonna get to, it gives it a run for its money. But this album is like the very first song on this album it says the Voidz, if you don't know, is Julian Casablancas' band, and they were called Julian Casablancas and the Voidz, and now they're just the Voidz, because now people, I think, for the most part, know that it's Julian Casablancas. And the first song on this album just sounds like a pretty good Strokes song, and it's like, wow, like, it's cool that he was kind of able to do something that sounds very Strokesy. And I was like, I wonder whether. Yeah, and then and then every other song on the album is just different. Like legitimately, like, you listen to this album, it's like, oh, that song's good. Let me hear the next song, and the next song will just make a hard left turn, and then another hard left turn, and then another hard left turn, and you kind of never really are. I mean, I feel like I have to listen to this album a lot more times before I'm going to be able to like wrap my arms around what it is. But I like it a lot. I think it's cool. I think it does a lot of good stuff really, really well. It's very interestingly produced. There are a lot of memorable riffs and grooves. I really like the guitars on Pyramid of Bones, which is a very metal song name. I really like the intro track, Queer. There's a lot of good songs on this album, and I like it. It's just like Alienation is awesome. It's just a matter of feeling like I need a lot of time to kind of make sense, because there's 15 songs on here, and there's a lot of all over the place, like Permanent High School, Alienation. Yeah, the one thing I will say about this album is that Julian Casablancas' weird social commentary works a lot better as song lyrics than they do as Vulture interviews. Like there's a lot of points there's a lot of points in this album where he says stuff that like would be kind of corny, but he's able to sell it in the context of songs way better than he is able to sell them in when he talks about anything in interviews, because he's kind of a head ass. But he made a good album. He's got a good band now that he's a part of as a side project from the Strokes, and I like this album, I think.
There's another double-edged sword, I think, with this album as well, where it's like the problem of having like so many tracks that just sound very different to each other. One, it's very tough to like create a cohesive body of work out of it. And also just with 15 tracks on it, like that's already very like intimidating and kind of like a little difficult to like get into, and just being like, oh, I have 15 tracks that I have to remember how each of them sounds, and it's easier because like you said, like each song, each track sounds radically different from each other while still having this like sort of like hypnagogic, like experimental synth punk like thread in each one of them. So I can't say this album is like bloated or full of filler, because there's really not any filler on here. But I feel weird saying this. I wish it was cut down by at least like 3 tracks.
Yeah.
By at least 3 tracks, I think that like 12, I think it would have been perfect.
Well, yeah, I think you're right in that it's not necessarily that there are some songs that feel out of place here. It's just that when everything is so all over the place and different, and they're trying so many things, it's hard to take in like 15 tracks worth of unique ideas. You know what I mean? Like
it's like too much of a good thing.
Exactly. Yeah, like if you're gonna have an album that's really trying a lot of different stuff and is trying to be a lot of different things, well, then you probably need to pare it down so that it's a short enough length that you can enjoy that kind of all over the place experience. Because this album is 58 minutes long, and that's kind of a lot of time to not really know where it's going. And maybe when I listen to it more and start to get a feel for like all of the turns it makes, maybe it'll be like less disorienting to listen through it.
Yeah.
This kind of reminds me of, I don't know if this comparison makes any sense at all, but it's like if the movie Inherent Vice was like an album. It's just making left turns left and right, and you're kind of trying to follow it, but then you get to a certain point where you realize like I shouldn't be trying to follow this and try to wrap my whole arms around the whole thing, and I should just kind of enjoy the ride. And maybe I'll get to that point with this album at some point, but right now it's like I have mixed feelings. It definitely does cool shit, and it's cool enough that it makes me want to return to it. But you know what albums don't make me want to return?
Oh, wait. Can I just say one quick thing?
Go ahead. Sorry, I just had a good segue. Go ahead.
We're just gonna compare this album and the next one really quick. Like, my understanding is that Virtue is kind of messy, but it works. And the next album we're going to talk about is a mess that does not work at all. And also, real quick, shout out to Twitter user Delaney West, Delaney, friend of the podcast. Hi, you're cool. Thank you for being a big Julian Casablancas stan. Thank you so much. Let's go.
Best for last.
It's good.
It is time.
All right.
It is time.
For all
Here we
of
go.
Mr. Jack White, in his new album Boarding House Reach. I just listened to this today, so I'm
Fuck Fantano.
Fuck Fantano.
Fuck Fantano.
Fuck Fantano. Fuck Fantano. I'm gonna choke him out with that yellow flannel like Daniel Bryan choked out that like Justin Roberts with a tie. Zach gets it. This this album is real bad. This is I was not. Here's the thing. So I mean, obviously I heard they're like, oh, it's bad. But I'm like it can't be that bad. And then of course I listen to it and I go, oh my god, what is he doing? Is his brain broke? Like the fact that I've had to ask myself that so many times this year with like certain albums is this artist's brain broke? But Jack White's probably the worst offender. Like here's the like I discussed this with on the January Catchup podcast when we talked about porches, and I'm like, is Aaron Main's brain broke? Like, did his breakup with Frankie Cosmos, did it break his brain? That had a clear reasoning for why his brain broke. You know, there's a correlation. I don't know what happened. Like, is it the election? Did Donald Trump?
It's ego.
It is ego. It is his ego.
It's just straight ego.
Here's the thing: when one of the least embarrassing moments on your album is when you're rapping, that's a bad sign, dude. That's a real bad sign.
That wasn't embarrassing to you?
It wasn't. It honestly wasn't that embarrassing.
Commend this album on being sort of unconventional and quote unquote experimental, but really it's not experimental because Jack White wanted to be oh, I want to mix up my sound. It feels like ego stroking from him basically on most of this. It just feels like Jack White just being like, hey, see, I can make cool future modern day rock music too. It's not all just throwback blues grunge weirdo shit. Oh my god, I hate this album. I really don't like this album. It's I mentioned dropping this in the chat earlier, but y'all remember a few years ago when Muse put out Drones?
I try not to.
It was really pseudo intellectual, and everybody hated it because it was just this trash heap of just trying way too hard to sound smart, and everybody hated it. Boarding House Reach is just basically that in 2018, but for some reason it's cool to like this album. I guess mostly because of Fantano. Not mostly. I'm sure some people like it because they actually enjoy the album. But that's not to say that Fantano was not expecting the backlash of this album and didn't realize I can do some massive ego boosting if I give this a 9 out of 10. I hate that this discussion of this album is being dominated by Fantano, and I'm guilty of this. But I don't think if it was because of him we would be talking about this album nearly as much. He threw a giant fucking wrench into the discussion of this album.
Yeah, because this whole album is he's really, really trying some stuff. The first real solo Jack White album was just kind of felt like watered down versions of White Stripes. Yeah, it felt like
good. I still think Blunderbuss was so
exactly good. Yeah, it's not bad. But then everyone was like, "Oh, Jack White's just recycling his old material." And Jack White, because Jack White has lots of money and a recording label and a studio, and people are like, "You're not a current cutting edge artist. You're just a relic of the past." And that's true. But Jack White doesn't want to believe that, so he's like, "I'll show you. I'm gonna make an album that tries stuff." And I actually before this album would have said I want Jack White to try stuff because I think Jack White is a very talented dude, and I'm like, yeah, he should go out on a limb and try new stuff. I wish I could go back in time and be like, no, don't. I take it back. Please do not do that.
It's just so self-indulgent. It's so incredibly self-indulgent, and it doesn't sound like he's actually trying to be experimental or game-changing for anything other than to say he was able to be game-changing and experimental in this way.
Go ahead. Actually.
This album already feels like it's going to be incredibly dated in a few years. Or if we're still comparing if we're comparing it to the Voidz stuff, I think like Tyranny was like considered, at least for me, considered an album where it was like Tyranny was, hey, this album is very forward thinking and people are going to realize it, and they're going to realize, hey, this was actually like an overlooked, like massively underrated like masterpiece in like 5 years or so. But with this album, people are going to be like, oh, hey, this was massively overrated, and this actually sounds like shit now in, like, 2023. Like, it feels like the legacy is already like, set in stone already for it, and it's been out for, like, 2 weeks. Like, there's nothing really here that I really want to go back to.
Yep.
I mean, I might listen to it over and over and over if it was like what Matty said, where, like...
Oh, okay, yeah.
The female back vocals, yeah.
So over and over is probably like the maybe one of two good tracks on the album. I even that I doubt, but it's not so good because it's mixed really poorly. Like, so here's the thing, it's basically like sort of like a classic White Stripes Jack White song. Like, hey, badass guitars, like really epic feel. Like, okay, this is good, and then the female vocals come in and you go, something doesn't feel right, and then you keep listening, you're like, okay, what's wrong with this? And you go, oh, the vocals are just mixed badly. It just feels like he recorded the female vocals separately.
Not even mixed badly. They sound like they were like pulled out of like a garbage like disposal and then just like tacked onto it in like, I don't know, Ableton or some shit.
Yeah, it just feels
just feels so like lazy. From someone who, like Jack White, who does all of his own production, like, it's so weird.
It just has that weird, like, this doesn't feel right, you know, it's just one of those things that just randomly pops up, you go, this isn't right. I mean, at least I appreciate it, because it's, again, at least it has enough good elements to it that I can kind of forgive it, but still, there's also songs like Why Walk a Dog, which is
Oh my god.
I mean, he makes a good point. Why walk a dog?
Because they're good boys and good girls, and they need to get their exercise, Jack. Shut the fuck up. You're terrible. Or then you have, like, Respect Commander, and that's just,
The worst
The Respect
fucking
Commander
song
has
name
logged
of
on.
2018 is fucking Respect Commander. Like, are you fucking kidding me? That sounds like some shit Chapo Trap House would name one of their fucking episodes. Like, good Christ.
Yeah.
There is no self-awareness anywhere on this album, and it's so fucking ridiculous.
The thing on this album that makes it especially just like offensive is that like this specific kind of like self grandioseness and self mythologization and just like poor like on the nose political commentary. This sort of stuff is the stuff that I expect out of like the new 30 Seconds to Mars album that came out this week that's called America. Like at least with Jared Leto, I'm like, okay, this makes sense. Jack White was supposed to be good at the music, but like clearly like sometimes when you're just like a dude that's made enough money and like had enough people tell you you're a really talented artist, sometimes it just fucks with your head to a certain degree that you're like, you know what the world needs is me rapping on a song. That's what I think in my head is a good idea.
You can go and you can like ban cell phones from your concert and like just basically be like old man yells at cloud. Which, by the way, talking about clouds, can we talk about this fucking album cover like really quick?
Holy shit!
Again, you can't. Again, the old man cannot yell at the cloud if he himself is the cloud, Dylan.
Also, yeah, like I mean, you don't get much more on the nose than literally calling a song "Corporation." Like, oh, I wonder what his political commentary and angle that he's gonna take in this song is. Oh, what? He doesn't like corporations?
Holy shit, Will King.
Jack White, he's not a fan of corporations, despite the fact that he has his own corporation that released this album. Although it's a good I mean, are there good corporations? Is that like a...
Probably not.
Like a
Indieheads podcast loves all the corporations and all the brands.
Honestly, it could be worse. Jack White could be like a fucking like Billy Corgan character right now, going on like fucking InfoWars and talking to Alex Jones about this shit.
He's close, dude. He's close.
Yeah,
he's like ridiculously close to it.
Like he was like
if Jack White was on InfoWars in like 3 years, looking like his Johnny Depp zombie self and being like, you know what, you got some good points, Mr. Alex Jones. I could not tell you I would be surprised. I wouldn't.
I mean, he's close in that, like, here's the thing, he already praised Jordan Peterson in an interview, and then very recently he gave a shout out to...
I forgot about that!
To Kacey...
No!
And hang on, let me pull up what the news about
Jack White. I forgot about that. I was like, what is some bullshit that Jack White has said recently? And I just could not bring it to my mind. So I was like, I guess he hasn't said anything. I'm just imagining it. No, but no, he was. Yeah, no, you're right.
No.
Fuck.
And he also committed the very punk, dangerous 6ix9ine, aka the guy who literally got convicted for child sex crimes. Like,
today he's like, I love this Tekashi 6ix9ine guy. In other words, Jack White, how do you do, fellow kids?
Christ, Jack White, man. Jack White, please go fix your brain.
Retire.
I don't know. Go fix.
Retire a bit.
Retire a bit.
Just retire. My summary to my boarding house reach review is that the White Stripes discography in stores now. Listen to that instead.
Yeah, I do have a bit of an angle on this. Like, unlike you guys, I have the self-preservation instincts to have not listened to a single second of this album. I would very much like to keep it that way. But this seems like what happened. Well, you know anymore. Like, it just seems from everything I've read to be hideously self-indulgent, self-absorbed, conceited, all those other bad words that are associated with egomania. And let's go for the hat trick on indie misogyny. The audacity of Jack White to be on a magazine cover holding a guitar that Annie Clark designed.
Oh yeah,
calling himself the last rock star is absolute bullshit.
I won't say that Jack White. I don't think. I mean, that was the magazine that did that. I will not blame Jack White for. That's just bad editorialism. That's just bad on whoever did the magazine. Jack White's not that stupid, all right? He's stupid. He's so dumb.
Are you sure? Are you sure he's not that stupid?
Okay, Jack White was not the one who said I'm the last great rock star, so you can't personally like dunk on him for that, but also like that is 1000% some shit Jack White would say. Just because it didn't come out of his mouth doesn't mean that Jack White didn't read that headline and be like, they're on to something there. The only person who was more mad about that headline was probably Alex Turner being like, I'm the last great rock star. I'll show them. I'll make the Ultracheese.
Is the Ultracheese just going to be like a running podcast joke at this point? Because I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh my god. We
might as well lean into it.
I'm sorry. Okay, I wanted to try to figure out if I was right, if Jack White actually said that. But there's an article from 2009 that has Jack White, the last rock star, as its headline. Shouts out to Oregon Live for thinking that Jack White's the last rock star back in 2009.
He's been the last rock star for 10 years now. That's seriously impressive, honestly.
What happens when Jack White dies? Are there no more rock stars?
No more rock stars.
Is on his phone.
The thing is that Jack White is the last rock star, and that he's the last old white dumbass who thinks that this is what being a rock star means. So in some ways, yes, he is the last rock star.
I mean, there is still Josh Homme. So
there is. Oh, it's true. Yeah, there's still Josh Homme. Yeah. This is not a visual medium, but me pulling the collar in my shirt right now and being like, yeah. Josh Homme, yikes. But I guess there is no shortage of old white assholes thinking they're still rock stars. We still have plenty of those these days. What a note to end this podcast on.
But Jackson, before we end this podcast, I feel like there's one more album we gotta talk about. It's an album that's kind of old, but there's new life that breathed into it today. Jackson, what is it?
but I'm not following where you're going with this at all.
I mean,
I might just be dumb.
I mean, again, some big news happened today. Stuff. The big news.
Yeah. Motherfucking. Finally. We ordered these in November. In November, they were available for an online sale, and it was told that in about 6 weeks they would ship the copies of Endless by Frank Ocean. He's like, we're gonna put it out on CD now and on vinyl, so you can actually fucking listen to it instead of having to watch an Apple Music video because he made an album and it's good. And here we are. It is April fucking 9th, and finally some people have received copies of Endless by Frank Ocean. Not even everyone. I haven't gotten a fucking shipping confirmation for the vinyl that I bought yet, but it doesn't matter because some people got their CDs, and Endless CDQ is out on the internet. It's out there. You can now finally listen to Frank Ocean's second album from 2016 without having to hear like the background noise from the warehouse and the shitty quality and the rip from Apple Music, because god damn it, Endless is like almost as good as Blonde. It's really, 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 really like actually a comparable album, and there are some people who think it's better than Blonde, and those people aren't stupid. It's really fucking good, and if you haven't listened to Endless and you like Frank Ocean, you are dumb, and I will fight you on this podcast, Andrew Jackson Moser. I will fight you if you don't listen to this album, because it's good, and I like it, and it has some of Frank Ocean's best songs ever on it, like Wither, and Higgs, and fucking Rushes, and other songs, and Unity, and damn it, Frank Ocean, send me my vinyl. Send it to my house. Please. Yeah.
Frank Ocean, come on the Indieheads podcast. Let's talk, baby. But okay, I think now that Jackson's got that out of his system, we're gonna wrap up this podcast. Hopefully, y'all enjoyed it. I don't know when's the next time you're gonna hear our beautiful voices.
Probably soon, because there was a lot of good music came out this week for the first week of April. It was a crazy release day, so hopefully we'll get back on the air to talk about some new albums that came out this weekend, like Up Along and Flatbush Zombies and other albums. Daniel Avery put out like Selected Ambient Works 3. There's a lot of good music that's coming out these days, so we'll probably do another podcast soon, hopefully. Mm-hmm. If we can wrangle enough people to get on a cast.
Yes, and also, you never know, we might do another Billboard podcast. We might have the first episode of Slammy Harder Daddy. That might actually happen now. The content's coming.
Woo!
If you guys release a wrestling podcast on the podcast feed, I officially quit. I officially quit the Indieheads podcast.
All right. Well,
I refuse.
Hopefully, you'll send your resignation notice in the next 5 days or so when it comes out. But hey, hope you guys enjoyed this. We will see y'all next time. And Jack White, retire, bitch. Bye.